Have you ever faced a challenge so big, so overwhelming, that it felt completely impossible to win? A moment where everything inside you screamed to just give up and walk away? Today, we're going to talk about a group of people who faced the ultimate impossible challenge. It's a story that has echoed through thousands of years, not because they won, but because of how they chose to fight. This is the story of the Battle of Thermopylae, and the 300 Spartans who taught the world what it truly means to stand your ground. In the year 480 BC, the mighty Persian Empire, the largest the world had ever seen, set its sights on Greece. The Persian king, Xerxes, had assembled an army of unimaginable size. Ancient historians described it as a river of men so vast it could drink rivers dry. Modern estimates vary, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of soldiers, all marching with one goal: to conquer the small, divided city-states of Greece. Faced with this overwhelming threat, most of Greece was paralyzed with fear. Many city-states surrendered immediately, believing resistance was futile. But one city-state was different: Sparta. Sparta was a society built on a single foundation, and that was discipline. From the age of 7, every Spartan male was trained to be a soldier. They endured brutal training, learned to ignore pain, and were taught that the highest honor was to die for Sparta. Their entire lives were a preparation for a moment just like this. So, when the call came to defend Greece, the Spartan king Leonidas didn't hesitate. But there was a problem. A religious festival was underway, and Spartan law forbade the army from marching until it was over. By then, it would be too late. Xerxes' army was already advancing. Leonidas knew he couldn't wait. He also knew he couldn't break the law and take the whole army. So, he made a legendary decision. He would go ahead, but he would only take his personal bodyguard of 300 men. These weren't just any 300 soldiers. They were the best of the best, elite warriors who had already proven their worth, and, crucially, all had sons to carry on their family lines. They knew this was likely a one-way trip. Leonidas chose a strategic location for his stand, a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae, which means the hot gates. This pass was so narrow that only a few men could fight side by side at once. Here, the Persians' massive numbers would count for nothing. It was the perfect choke point. The massive Persian army would be forced to funnel into a tiny space, facing the Spartans head-on. Along with about 7,000 other Greek allies from different cities, the Spartans prepared to hold the line. When King Xerxes arrived and saw the tiny Greek force blocking his path, he was almost amused. He was the most powerful man on earth. He sent a messenger demanding they surrender. "Lay down your weapons," the messenger said. Leonidas gave a reply that has become famous throughout history. "Molin labe," it means, "come and get them." Xerxes waited for 4 days, expecting the Greeks to see the size of his army and run away in terror, but they didn't move. They stood there, calm and disciplined, waiting. Finally, on the 5th day, Xerxes lost his patience and ordered the attack. What happened next was stunning. The first wave of Persian soldiers charged into the pass, and they were cut down. The Spartans, with their long spears, heavy bronze shields, and superior training, formed a wall of shields and steel called a phalanx. The Persians, with their lighter armor and wicker shields, couldn't break through. Wave after wave crashed against the Spartan line and was thrown back, leaving piles of their fallen comrades behind. The Spartans fought with unmatched discipline. They would pretend to retreat, luring the Persians forward into a disorganized chase, and then suddenly they would turn and decimate them. Xerxes, watching from a nearby hill, was said to have leaped from his throne in frustration and fury, not once, but 3 times, as he watched his best troops get systematically destroyed. He even sent in his elite personal guard, the legendary Immortals, a unit of 10,000 of his finest soldiers. They were called the Immortals because their numbers were always kept at exactly 10,000. As soon as one fell, another would take his place. But at Thermopylae, they died just like everyone else. The Spartan wall held firm. For 2 full days, the small Greek force held off the entire Persian army. They were exhausted, wounded, but unbroken. It seemed impossible. They were doing what no one thought could be done, but the story takes a tragic turn. A local Greek man named Ephialtes, hoping for a reward from the Persian king, revealed a secret. He told Xerxes about a hidden mountain path that went around the hot gates and would allow the Persians to encircle the Greeks from behind. This was the ultimate betrayal. When Leonidas learned that the Persians were coming from behind, he knew the battle was lost. The position was no longer defensible. He had a choice to make. He could order a full retreat and save himself and his men. No one would have blamed him. They had already done more than anyone could have asked. They had held off the might of Persia for 2 days, buying precious time for the rest of Greece to prepare its defenses. But that wasn't the Spartan way. Leonidas gave his orders. He dismissed the other Greek allies, telling them to go and warn the other cities and prepare for the coming invasion. He and his 300 Spartans would stay. So would a group of about 700 Thespians who voluntarily chose to stay and die with them. In an incredible act of courage that is often overlooked, they were going to make their last stand. They knew they would die. Every single one of them knew. But they weren't fighting for victory anymore. They were fighting for something bigger. They were fighting for an idea, the idea of freedom. The idea that free men fighting for their homes and their way of life were superior to subjects forced to fight for a king. On the third day, surrounded on all sides, the Spartans and their allies fought with a fury that bordered on the divine. They knew this was the end. They broke their phalanx formation and charged out into the open, fighting with a ferocity that stunned the Persians. Leonidas fell, and a fierce battle was fought over his body, with the remaining Spartans desperately trying to protect their fallen king. They were pushed back to a small hill, their spears broken, their shields shattered. They fought on with their short swords, and when those broke, they fought with their hands and teeth. They fought until the very last man was killed by a storm of Persian arrows, fired from a distance because the Persians were too afraid to face them up close any longer. And then there was silence. The pass was clear. Xerxes had won the battle. But as he looked at the field, littered with thousands of his best soldiers, he must have wondered at what cost. He had won the ground, but the Spartans had won immortality. So why is this story so powerful, even 2,500 years later? It's because it's not really about war or violence. It's about the power of the human spirit. It's about courage in the face of impossible odds. The Spartans at Thermopylae were outnumbered maybe 100 to 1, maybe more. They knew they couldn't win. They knew they were going to die. And yet, they stood. They fought. Their sacrifice was not in vain. The stand at Thermopylae became a rallying cry for all of Greece. It showed them that the Persians were not invincible gods. They were men, and they could be beaten. The delay Leonidas bought gave the Greek navy time to prepare for a decisive battle at Salamis, where they would crush the Persian fleet, turning the tide of the war. The story of the 300 inspired a generation of Greeks to unite and fight back, ultimately preserving the future of Western civilization, democracy, philosophy, and art. This story teaches us a profound lesson. In our own lives, we all face our own Thermopylae moments. Maybe it's a difficult project at work, a personal struggle, a daunting exam, or standing up for what you believe in when everyone else is silent. The odds might feel stacked against you. The fear of failure might be overwhelming. And in those moments, we can remember Leonidas and his 300. You don't have to win every battle to make a difference. Sometimes the victory is in the struggle itself. It's in the decision to stand your ground, to not back down, to face your fears with discipline and courage. It's about showing up when it would be easier to run away. That stand, that refusal to surrender your values and your integrity, is what defines your character. It's what makes you strong. Sometimes, standing your ground against an impossible force is what makes you immortal. The next time you feel overwhelmed and want to give up, remember the 300. They knew they would die, but they still fought. What they left behind wasn't a victory in battle, but a legacy of courage that has inspired millions for millennia. They lost the battle, but they won history. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of courage and history that can motivate us today. Let me know in the comments what challenge you refacing and how you plan to stand your ground. See you next time.